tree identification and selection. Welcome back. In this episode, we're covering tree identification and selection, which makes up about 9% of the Certified Arborist Exam. This domain is all about knowing what tree you're looking at, understanding its characteristics, and using that information to make correct management and site selection decisions. On the exam, tree identification isn't trivia. It's the foundation for diagnosing problems, predicting growth, and recommending the right tree for the right place. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how trees are classified, how they're identified, and how that information drives proper tree selection. Let's start with why tree identification matters. Accurate identification tells you a tree's growth rate and mature size, structural tendencies, pest and disease vulnerabilities, environmental tolerances. On the exam, you'll often see questions where misidentifying the species leads to the wrong diagnosis or recommendation. Always slow down and identify the tree first. Tree classification systems. Trees are broadly classified into groups like angiosperms and gymnosperms, and further into categories such as deciduous, semi-deciduous, and evergreen. You're not being tested to memorize taxonomy charts, but you are expected to recognize broad patterns, broadleaf versus needle-bearing, flowering versus cone-producing, seasonal leaf retention. Another key exam topic is scientific naming or binomial nomenclature. Genus is capitalized, species is lowercase, and both are italicized or underlined. If you see a question involving reports, communication, or professionalism, the correct answer often includes proper scientific naming, not common names alone. Morphological features used for identification. Now let's talk about how trees are identified in the field. The exam heavily emphasizes morphology, meaning physical structures, roots, trunk, and branches. Bark texture, color, exfoliation, and trunk form can all provide clues. Some species have distinctive branch arrangements or growth habits that are visible even at a distance. Twig anatomy, this is a favorite exam area. Know terms like buds, nodes and internodes, leaf scars, lenticels. Twig characteristics are especially useful in winter identification, which the exam may reference indirectly. Leaf anatomy. Leaves are one of the most reliable identification tools. You should recognize simple versus compound leaves, opposite versus alternate arrangement, leaf margins, bases, and apices. A classic exam trap is confusing leaflets with leaves. Remember, compound leaves have multiple leaflets attached to a single petiole. Flowers, fruits, and seeds. Flowers and fruiting structures are often species-specific. The exam focuses less on memorizing types and more on recognizing that reproductive structures are diagnostic features. If a question mentions seed pods, samaras, nuts, or cones, it's pointing you toward identification. Tree form and silhouette, overall shape, upright, spreading, weeping, columnar, can narrow identification quickly. Silhouette questions often show up as site selection scenarios, especially related to clearance, infrastructure conflicts, or long-term maintenance. Tropical and desert tree characteristics. The exam also includes adaptations tropical and desert trees may show, specialized leaves, modified root systems, physiological adaptations for heat, salt, or drought. You're not expected to be a regional expert, but you are expected to recognize that form and function match environment. Tree selection for planting sites. Now we move from identification into selection, which is where many exam questions live. Tree selection requires matching, species characteristics, soil conditions, available rooting space, sun, wind, and water exposure, short and long-term maintenance goals. On the exam, the correct answer is rarely the prettiest tree. It's the tree most likely to thrive long-term. Be especially careful with questions involving soil volume limitations, urban sites, infrastructure conflicts, species-specific vulnerabilities. Right tree, right place is a core exam theme. Exam focus callouts. Watch for these patterns. Identification used to justify management decisions. Leaf arrangement or twig features hidden in wordy questions. Site selection questions testing mature size, not nursery size. Scientific names used as a professionalism cue. If the exam gives you physical clues, it wants you to use them. Rapid review summary. Let's wrap this up. Tree identification supports diagnosis, pruning, and selection. Classification helps narrow broad groups. Morphology, leaves, twigs, bark, flowers, fruit, drives identification. Tree form and silhouette matter for long-term planning. Proper selection balances species needs with site conditions. If you identify the tree correctly, the rest of the question often solves itself. and that's tree identification and selection. You're now building the skills to recognize trees, understand their needs, and recommend them responsibly, exactly what the exam is testing. Next up, we'll move into soil management, where everything you've learned connects underground. Thanks for listening to the Arborist podcast. Let's keep building your arborist knowledge one domain at a time.